Hi, it's Chef Jackie. I hope you guys are having a good summer. I miss you. I wish you guys were here. But since we're going to be doing something remote, I wanted to show you what we're going to be making today. So today we're going to make our homemade spaghetti and make our own tomato sauce. So when you open your box, you'll see a lot of little containers. I've labeled them all out for you so you'll know exactly what we're doing. This is our flour. These are our eggs. And then this is our salt and our oil. It's really, really simple. So the first thing we want to do is we want to wash our hands. So make sure your hands are really clean because we're going to be using our hands for this. I'm even going to take my watch off so I don't get it dirty. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my flour and I'm just going to dump it right on the table. Now that it's on the table, I'm going to make a little well in the center. Almost like you're making like a volcano or a sandcastle on the beach where it's got a little hole in the center, just like that. And into the center, we're going to crack 3 eggs. There we go. And if your center looks a little small, you can push it out a little more and make sure you have room for it. 2 and 3. Woo! We lost an egg. So now we're going to use our fingers and we're going to mix this together. Slowly we're going to start to bring some of the flour in. If your eggs fall, you just smush them back in the center. And we want to just get those broken up and mixed in. This is the fun part because you get to be a little messy. That's why you have to make sure your hands are clean. There we go. Now, we're going to add a little bit of our oil and our salt. It's just going to help to give the pasta some flavor so it tastes really good. And now we're just going to keep mixing. You slowly want to push the outside of the flour towards the center. So I go out and in on all sides. Smush it down. And at first it's going to be really dry, like this. You see it's really crumbly. But as you keep going, it starts to come together. It starts to look like a dough. And if you find that you get here and it's kind of together, but it looks a little dry, you can always add a little splash of water with your fingers. Pasta is really easy because it doesn't take a lot of ingredients. It just takes a little bit of time and you get to mush it around like Play-Doh. So I'm going to add a little bit of water to mine to make sure that it's nice and soft. There we go. Oh yeah, now it's starting to look like dough for real. You want to make sure that you are kneading your dough. You might want to take about 5 or 10 minutes. You want it to get really nice and smooth. So as we keep working it, it starts to come together more and more. You can see that it's starting to really look like dough, almost like pie dough. That's how you know it's getting closer. Get all those extra little bits. Now I have dough all over my fingers. There we go. So it just took a little extra water, maybe like a tablespoon of water, just a little bit, really helped. And now you can see it's really starting to come together and look like one solid piece. There we go. So now once my dough looks nice and smooth, it looks like one solid piece of dough. There's not a lot of pieces being shaggy and falling off. I'm going to take a piece of plastic wrap Or you can just take a dish towel, but I like to use plastic wrap. We're gonna wrap the dough up and let it sit for about 30 minutes. There we go. That is step one. And we're just gonna let that sit there while we start our sauce. Okay, so now that we've made our pasta dough and we're letting it rest, we're gonna make our pasta sauce. So if you look back in the box, you'll see the rest of these containers. So you have a container of crushed tomatoes, you have a container that has garlic and all your spices, you have a container with your diced onion, and then butter and olive oil. So we're gonna talk about the spices that are in here so that you know what we're putting in our sauce. The first thing, and we'll take these out, is our garlic. Garlic is delicious. It helps to make all things that remind you of spaghetti in Italy. Everything has garlic, so you have to make sure you use your garlic. Also in here, we have dried basil, we have some red chili flakes, we have salt, and we have a little bit of sugar. One thing that people don't think about, when you use tomatoes, especially tomatoes in a can, they can be really acidic. They can taste really sharp. But if you add a little bit of sugar, it helps to smooth everything out and makes the flavor really, really nice. So what we're gonna do with our garlic is really simple. You can either have one of your parents or an adult help you chop this, or you can do it the way I like to. To smash your garlic, it's really, really simple. What I like to do is I like to put the garlic down on the board. I take my knife and I make sure the blade is pointing away from me, not towards me, but away. And I put it right on top of the garlic. I take my other hand and I put it on top of the knife and I push. And now it's smashed. So you can smash all of your garlic. And if you feel comfortable chopping it, you can chop it too, or you can leave it just like that. It's gonna go in the sauce and it's gonna simmer, and either way, you're gonna get a lot of great flavor. So I'm just gonna give mine a little bit more of a chop. Perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect or even terribly small, because the longer it sits in the sauce, the more it's gonna fall apart and give all that delicious flavor. So now that we've got all of our ingredients ready for our sauce, we're ready to go to the stove and start cooking. Okay, so now it's time to make our sauce. So we're gonna take our container that has the butter and oil. We only want the oil right now. We're gonna hold on to the butter and just pour the olive oil in there. Excellent. So we wanna make sure that our burner is not up too high. We're gonna put it on medium right now. And when the oil starts to look a little shimmery, that's when you know it's ready to add the next ingredient. The first thing we're going to put in with this are our onions. These are already diced for you, so you don't have to do anything, but just add them straight to the pan. Beautiful. And we're going to saute our onions for like a minute or two, just until they start to get soft and you can really smell them. When you put something in a pan and you start to smell it, that's when it's releasing all of its good flavor. So that tells you that you're almost ready to go to the next step. It smells really good. I hope yours smells really good too. So now we're gonna add our garlic. We always wanna wait to add our garlic because garlic burns really fast. So once we put the garlic in and we start to smell it, once you smell it, time for the next ingredient. And it doesn't take long, and now I smell the garlic. So now we're gonna add in all of our spices. And we give them a stir too. When the spices go in, they get a little toasty and you'll start to smell them as well. Now we'll add our butter. This adds a little more fat, a little more flavor, and it helps to give those spices something to stick to. Now we're ready to add our tomatoes. So these are just crushed tomatoes. And now we're going to add a little bit of water. We add the water because we know we're going to let this simmer for a while, and we don't want it to cook down until it turns into tomato paste. We still want it to be soft. So we give it a little bit of water to help loosen it up. And now our tomato sauce is just going to sit here and simmer while we go back and finish making our pasta. So now we're back and we're going to finish our pasta. Our dough's been resting and you can feel it, it's really nice and soft. So we're going to unwrap it from the plastic, put it back on our counter. It's very nice. It feels sort of like Play-Doh. It's not sticky, but it's not completely dry. So in order to roll this out, we're going to put a little bit of flour on the counter. We'll turn the dough over on both sides so it has a nice little coating there. And we're just going to flatten it out with our hands first. Now, you can use a pasta machine or a rolling pin or anything that's round and flat that you have in your house. So it doesn't even have to be a real rolling pin. It can be anything you want. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to roll my dough out. And I want to roll my dough as flat as I can because we want our pasta to be nice and thin. If you leave it a little thicker, it won't be spaghetti. It'll be more like linguine or fettuccine, which is okay. So if you like it thicker, you can make it thicker. There we go. And you want to make the pasta almost like a rectangle. So you want one side to be longer than the other. That's how we get the long noodles. There we go. I like to turn mine over, so that way I make sure I'm rolling it evenly on both sides so that one end isn't fatter than the other. There we go, that's nice and flat. We're almost ready to cut our pasta. Now when it comes to cutting our pasta, you can use anything you like. You can use a bench scraper, something like this. You could use just a regular butter knife. You don't have to use anything super sharp. Final time, and it will be all ready to cut. There we go. So I'm going to use the bench scraper because it's nice and long, it's not sharp, so it makes it safe to use on the counter. All you want to do is you want to cut strips. And you want them to be as thin as they can be. So this is how my strips look. Nice and thin, make a nice little pasta. And once you have all of your pasta cut, we're just going to take it all, we're just going to put it on a tray off to the side, just so that it's out of our way. Just like that. So you cut your pasta and then I'll show you how we're going to cook it. Alright, so now it's time to cook our spaghetti. So we've got a pot of boiling water. I put a pinch of salt in it. That just helps to give it a little more extra flavor when we cook our noodles. So we're just going to take our noodles and drop them right in our boiling water. The nice thing about making fresh pasta is that it only takes about 3 minutes to cook. So when it starts to float, that's when you know it's ready to go. So while our pasta's boiling, let's check on our sauce. Let's see how this looks. That looks really nice. I'm very excited. We'll check on our sauce. It looks very nice. If your sauce looks a little thick, you can always add a little bit of water. That will help to thin it out until you add your pasta. Beautiful. And if we take a look into our pasta water, you can see that they're starting to float. That's how I know that they're ready. Now it's time to put everything together. So once your noodles have boiled, I got a little excited. We're going to take them directly out of the water and put them straight into our sauce. And now we just want to stir them together to make sure every noodle has a nice amount of sauce. And there we go. Now comes the best part. Now it's time to eat it. And there you go. We've got fresh pasta and a homemade tomato sauce. You can try this with any other seasonings if you want to put some ground beef in your tomato sauce, or if you want to try different vegetables, you can make this however you want. This is just the basic way. I can't wait to see what you guys made.